it's hard to design something to treat it. So they'll monitor it, and then it need to be retrofitted.
Just wanted to give off an odor. There will be, X amount of odor coming from it.
It depends on how frequently the tanks are used.
Right.
Tanks are built in size to accommodate build out conditions from delta bill and topping.
Mhm.
So that's going to develop over time. So there probably several years before these tanks are even used.
Okay. What's the volume of these tanks?
Collectively, we've got 100,000 gallons of storage here,
All right.
and we're putting in a similar facility in Hartfield as well, albeit with close to 300,000 gallons of storage off Wood Road. Same concept. They've got a sewer service area planned for that area as well. So for the station.
Okay, and just one other question, as far as the pumps that will be used to pump that. How many pumps will be there?
There are two proposed at the station, two submersible pumps.
2 submersible pumps. Okay. I wasn't expecting those kind of pumps, but I was expecting straight impelled pumps, but you're saying submersible.
Submersible solid tank.
Okay. All right.
So you're talking a different language from what
I'm
I
sorry.
thought. That's why it's here. So he-
Pumps that are suitable
Do this.
for the stuff you find in wastewater.
Okay. I
Have dinner yet?
I have learned over the years, that
Okay.
everybody has their own language with different careers and vocations, and so you definitely need some education based on those definitions. All right, well, this was an informational piece, so we'll be voting on this in January after Mr. Reed goes and checks it out.
Will do.
All right.
Mr. Reed, what is the best way, I guess, for us and Jeremiah to kind of get in touch with you to set something up? So you can,
Alright.
driving by is not going to do too much. We want to get you, get someone to open up a facility and stuff for you.
Okay, I can give you my phone number.
Or Jeremiah, why don't you give your card with it?
Yeah.
You don't?
I can always email you all his phone number, so you're not.
Okay, that's
giving
fine.
out on it. I'll do that.
Okay, that's
I'll do
fine.
that tonight.
No, you're saying this one.
I'm
This
going
Wednesday.
Wednesday of this week.
You were just saying you were just going to Surrey in general.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, to visit that plant though. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But yes, he's going a special trip. The 14th.
Mhm.
Have you scheduled with anybody?
No, we were given somewhat of an invitation to go and visit that plant. I don't know who that came through. But
Because apparently that was the nearest one.
I think we need
Similar.
to coordinate
Yeah,
though.
we need to
with
yeah,
those.
it's
Yeah,
the nearest
Yeah.
similar one to what's being
Mhm.
proposed out here. Size
Okay.
wise, HFC has pretty large facilities, and certainly the big one that's, the size of a couple of houses, and then
Right.
this is a bit more. It's gonna be closer to business. So
okay, well, tell you what, you all find out what I need to go take a look at. Get in contact with me and we'll go take a look at it and that'll be it.
sound good?
I'll email you, hit both of you his number
Thank you.
after the meeting, right?
Yeah, okay, I'll take it.
Okay, okay,
Give you the impression, this is what, other than being above ground, this is what.
all right, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
All right, change of meeting date for February, January.
For the
sorry,
January meeting,
January.
yes, and this request does come from me. The January school board meeting falls during the same time as the VASBO, which is the Virginia Association of School Superintendents in combination with the Virginia Association of School Business Officials Conference. It's always that same time of year. It's in Richmond. It's Karen and I both plan to attend. And it's a lot of good information at that time. My request is for us to move our regularly scheduled January meeting from Monday, the 9th to Tuesday, the 10th, so that I can stay for the full day of the conference on Monday and then at least be able to have the morning part of the conference on Tuesday and then come back for the board meeting.
Okay.
So that is a request to actually accommodate me to attend that conference.
All right, is there a motion to change the January 9th, 2023 meeting to January the 10th, 2023? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we have a policy review on page 77.
And so we have 3 policies here that are up for, you'll see them at second reading. There have been no changes or updates since you first approved them at first reading last month. I just would point out that with policy IIAB, just as a part of your packet this evening, because it's not a part of the policy, I've included the procedures that we'll use for implementation of that policy specifically related to sexually explicit material. And then I also included the form that teachers will be using to identify material. It's a Google form, so then it will be housed on our end, and we of course have to post anything on our website that we have identified. So those 2 pieces are in there just for your information, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Is there, I guess the way we need to start this is I'll open it up for discussion.
I have a comment about the sexually explicit policy. How many board members have received concerns from parents about sexually explicit material in their child's classroom materials?
Not this year.
Okay, not this year. Anybody received any this year?
No.
Okay. I have not. My concern is that the burden here is on teachers. And there's a form to fill out. They have to rearrange their teaching materials. And we ask teachers to do a lot, and we ask them to do a lot on their own time. This isn't something that's going to happen usually during the school time. This is something that they're going to be doing on weekends or their planning time, which is usually outside of school. And so I'm concerned about just adding one more straw that may just break the camel's back. I haven't seen any evidence that here or elsewhere that this is a problem. So I have that kind of concern. I don't know that we have any choice. I understand that, but I do feel obligated to express my concern. I think we need to start teaching. We need to start treating teachers like they're professionals, and this goes in the opposite direction. So that's my comment.
Anybody else?
I should add, I don't think sexually explicit materials belong in the classroom. I just don't see that it's a major problem that requires this amount of effort by our already overburdened teachers.
I think that this type of policy is needed statewide, and obviously this is required by the state. Every school division must pass a policy similar to this, if not the same one, but each can identify wording that they prefer to use, but all of us have to pass a policy similar to this. And I appreciate the fact that it may place an added burden, but I also appreciate that you need to know your material before you put it in front of your student. And this may help to make sure that teachers know their materials before they put it in. I mean, things can slip by, and they have. And this is a safeguard for our students, I think, and parents.
And I mean, with all that our teachers do have, I would rather have this in place and not be chasing a situation or find ourselves in a situation where this will help avoid a situation. I would much rather look at it from that end than to have to address a situation after it has occurred.
Anyone else? All right, let's see, are we addressing all of these as one?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve GCBD -R3, IIA, and IIAB on second reading?
So move.
Is there a second? No second. You all are aware that this is a requirement by the state by January the 1st. We will be in non-compliance.
That is correct. We are required to have a policy in place by January 1, 2023.
There is a responsibility.
So we need to have discussion. All right, what is the problem? I mean, in some ways, we don't have a choice. And I think if the requirement to complete the form is the issue, if you find the form to be something that is this unsatisfactory, then maybe we can change the form. Is that the issue?
So I read this, if you strictly adhere to this material, you know, a teacher has a choice as to when they can, up to 30 days, they need at least 30 days if they're presenting anything of a sexual nature to their class. Now, it appears to me that that particular situation should not be certainly in English or math or history or those things, so that when a student is assigned to a class and that teacher has those students, it appears to me that each student must have this information prior to them teaching anything. That, I think, is what Doc's talking about by the additional burden for the teachers. But if we have that in a form through the school, that these materials will be used in that particular class, and each student gets that information, that clears us there as I see it. Is
The
that correct?
information has to go to the parents, yes.
Yeah, so that information, when that student signs up for that class, that information has to go to the, so that's just a standard form, I would assume, that would be presented. So in answer to Doc's situation, that would take the burden from the teacher quite a bit, because all they got to do is the students get that particular form signed by the parents, noting that they have read and accept that information. Is that how we're doing it now?
Well, we haven't had to do that until
Okay.
now. That has been added, all of that wording has been added to the instructional materials policy now that we do have to have in place. I know what Dr. Burnett was speaking about is the amount of time that has to be spent on going through every piece of information that's considered instructional material, and then making sure that parents are identified or notified 30 days in advance. Our plan will be, especially for next year, that it'll be go in the syllabus that goes home with students. And then we'll of course, on our end at the division level, keep all of the, any books that we have or any other material that's used, we'll keep that identified. If a parent, does not want their child to participate and use that piece of material, then they have the right to request an alternative, text or material there. And the teacher does need to provide an alternative piece of whatever they're studying. That it does create additional work on the teachers. It
Sure
creates
does.
additional work on the forefront of it and making sure they've covered all of this. And there can be some really deep discussion on what materials contained sexually explicit content, especially when you're talking about the secondary level and a lot of Shakespeare's writings and things like that, where there can be lots of discussion that will need to take place within the departments. And then if there needs to be an alternative assignment, it's really trying to figure out how to do that. At the same time, you're teaching this material,
That's right.
but having a student participate with a different piece of material.
Sure.
That I see that as a challenge.
Yeah, that's a challenge because in the same classroom, that's pretty tough.
One of my favorite sculptures is David by Michelangelo. There's some wording in here, a lewd exhibition of nudity. Is that lewd? I mean, who's to determine that? Maybe, I think it's lewd, but you don't. Or I think maybe a student in a high school class doesn't think it's lewd, but their parent does. So, I mean, I see this as being problematic as a policy that not everyone understands and therefore behaves accordingly. But I also understand that we have no choice. And I guess that probably concerns me as much as anything, that we're given no choice here. It takes away the freedom that I think teachers need and school boards need as well. And so I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place as to, I'm not going to second the motion, but I might vote for it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chrissy, so if we're not compliant, where do we go? What happens?
Well, this comes, it's the legislature is who established it and was given the directive to the Board of Education or from the state superintendent. And so we are required to have a policy in place for it.
Required. And so what happens if we decide,
You on your own?
I'll have to call our attorney.
I think you on your own.
That would be illegal, and I don't mean that to be funny. That would be
No,
a question.
I understand.
I would have to reach out to our school board attorney and.
time is, we've been lucky, in my opinion, that we've had very few or none of these situations to face.
Right.
But sooner or later, and here's one of them coming down the pike that gets to us. So I just, somewhere along the line, we've got to make a decision. Are we gonna, what happens if we're not in compliance? Where do we go from there? What happens to us and how is that handled? I
Well,
can't
I look
answer
at it
that.
from another, I taught literature for 10 years. And there's a lot of good literature out there that doesn't have sexually explicit material in it.
Well, why, sure.
So I think our teachers can find good material without having to use. Have you read some? I had to look up some of these words. I had no idea what they
Understand.
meant. And I would hope that we are not putting this kind of material in front of our students. I get the idea of the classical materials. I taught Shakespeare. I know. But from that perspective, I would hate someone to walk in and say you can't teach Romeo and Juliet because of the jokes, basically, that he has in there that are off color.
So they lose.
But they don't fall into the categories of many of these words that are listed in here, you know. And I would hope that our teachers would use good judgment on the type of books that they, or short stories, whatever they may be, but they put in front of our students. As I said, I think this may not be something that directly affects us because of the rural nature and our more conservative population, but you get into other parts of the state who are where you have teachers who like to push and stretch. And I think that is why this is.
I also think as long as the teacher is planning and doing what they should be doing prior to throwing something out there,
Exactly.
we're going to be just fine.
I agree. But I also realize that this is a policy that we need to pass. And which in many ways, I mean, it's a protection for our students also that this doesn't happen.
Teachers.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And I know I've heard of situations where when you don't adhere or you don't pass policy that they ask you to pass, if something goes wrong, then you're pretty much out there by yourself. And things can happen. A teacher can miss something. And that's all it's going to take is for one teacher to miss one thing. And then we end up in a situation where this will help protect us. And if we get into a situation, we have some backing to where we can handle it and deal with it.
Well, it would be that we have a policy in place that that shouldn't
Exactly.
happen. That would be.
It shouldn't happen, but things do happen.
Well, certainly again.
But I give more credit to our teachers, I think, than our legislators do.
I do too, but they are human.
They're
They're
not
human.
educators. And I object to the fact that non-educators are telling us how to teach in our classrooms. I don't think that they have the expertise that our teachers do, that our superintendent and the staff that we have do. I really object to them telling us how to teach. But I have a suggestion, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
If you will agree to arrange a meeting with Delegate Hodges, so we can express our concern about this. I won't second it, but I will vote for passage of this policy because I think we have to.
Right. I think, I'm not sure we can get that done between now and Christmas, but maybe the first of the year. And that Capitol Conference actually is a time when they set aside for us to meet with the legislator, but since he lives just down the street from us, I think we ought to be able
I'd rather meet on our home turf.
Anyway, I will see if I can't get that meeting arranged. Yes. I will get that meeting. Let me rephrase
You
that.
bought me off.
I will get that meeting arranged. As soon as possible. About that. And maybe it can be between now and in the next 10 days. We'll see. All right, there is a motion on the table. I need a second.
I'll second it for now.
Is there any more discussion since I held the discussion outside of the
Gotta do it.
appropriate Robert's rules? Is there any more discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Because I got it.
Yeah.
Do you want a roll call or was that a 5-0?
No.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that healthy discussion. All right. I teach data science course requests. No, I'm just skipping all over the place. How about let's do the instructional
Well,
report?
the instructional report
Wave
is,
your hand, Dr. Bishop. Maybe I'll get it.
the instructional report is the two things. It's the data science course request. And Dr. Walsh will present that this evening for you. And it's really kind of planning for next year and making sure that all our students have just the breadth of courses. And we can fit this into our schedule. We talked with Ms. Fleet, the principal. So Dr. Walsh, would you like to present this request for a new course, which is data science?
Do you have, oh,
There
His
you go.
computer blew up. Maybe he's coming back. There he
The other one. You don't have it. I can pull it. Yeah.